All right, let's just jump right in. Have you ever really stopped to wonder who really calls the shots on the world stage? I'm not talking about presidents or prime ministers. I mean the system itself. What if that whole global order, the one we're all told to trust, was, well, never actually designed to be fair for everyone?
I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? When a war starts or stops, or when a line is drawn on a map that changes everything for millions of people, who's actually making that call? The answer, well, it's probably a lot more concentrated and a lot farther away than you might think.
Because the reality is, it seems like these massive, life-altering decisions are made by a really small group of people. And that idea is at the very heart of why trust in the whole international system is crumbling. It just feels so remote, right? Like there's no accountability, and the people in charge are totally disconnected from the real-world consequences.
And look, this isn't just about one place or one conflict. This collapse of trust, it's happening everywhere. You see the same story of disillusionment playing out over and over again, whether you're looking at conflicts in the Middle East or interventions in the Sahel. This isn't a one-off. It's a pattern. It's a problem with the system itself.
So, to really get why this is happening, we've got to look at how the system was built in the first place. And here's the kicker. The argument is that all this bias we see, it's not some accident. It's not a bug. It's a feature. It was literally designed this way from day one.
You know, the world order we have today didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's been engineered for over 200 years. After every major war, the winners got together and basically designed a system to keep themselves on top. From the Congress of Vienna to the League of Nations and then the UN after World War II, the pattern is pretty clear. The winners write the rules.
And the absolute centerpiece of that power, it's one little thing, the veto. Just 5 countries have it, and it means any one of them can just say nope and stop any resolution dead in its tracks. It's the ultimate power move, making sure the system can never ever turn against its most powerful members.
So, what do you think happens when a UN resolution does get passed that one of these big powers or their allies doesn't like? Well, it pretty much becomes symbolic. It's effectively just ink on paper. Because how can you enforce it? The very countries that are supposed to do the enforcing are the ones who are against it in the first place. You see the problem? Okay, let's make this less abstract. Let's look at a real-world example of how this all plays out. The recent Security Council resolution on Gaza is a perfect case study. It really pulls back the curtain on the system's core contradictions and how it can be used to push a very particular agenda. So this resolution basically has 2 main parts. First, it sets up something called a Board of Peace, which is essentially an international group that would take guardianship over Gaza, sidelining local leadership. And second, it calls for an international stabilization force to come in, provide security, and, this is the key part, disarm any armed groups.
And right there, you hit a massive contradiction. The plan is to force disarmament with military power. But if you look at history, Afghanistan, Mali, pretty much anywhere this has been tried, disarmament almost never works, unless the armed groups actually agree to it. It has to be consensual, with real guarantees for their safety.
And this gets even messier, because it creates this huge legal and moral problem. See, the territory is officially recognized as being under occupation. And, under international law, people have a right to armed resistance against occupation. So how do you justify sending in a force to disarm a population that has a legal right to resist? The resolution basically ends up fighting the very laws it's supposed to be based on.
Okay, so you might be thinking, this is all happening thousands of miles away. What does it have to do with me? Well, a lot, actually, because this stuff is never just over there. It has a very real, very direct impact right here at home, especially when it comes to your wallet.
Just look at the price of gas. We've seen it jump by over 15% recently, and that's been directly linked to instability in the Middle East. That's not some abstract number on a chart. That's you, at the pump, paying more every single time you fill up your car. That's real money.
And it's a pretty simple domino effect, right? A crisis erupts somewhere in the world, it messes up the global supply chains, shipping gets more expensive, things get delayed, and guess who ends up paying for all that? We do. At the grocery store, when we're buying electronics, you name it.
And on a bigger scale, this creates what you could call a budget squeeze. More money gets poured into defense spending to manage all these crises happening abroad. And where does that money come from? Well, it puts a huge strain on the money available for things we need here at home, like healthcare and education. All while the national deficit just keeps getting bigger. The cost of instability abroad is paid for right here.
So, with this massive crisis of trust, and with a system that seems to have these deep flaws built right into it, what happens next? Where is all this heading? Let's talk about a couple of possible futures for the world order.
Okay, so on one hand, you have the idea of a total collapse, like a major power just walks away and the whole thing falls apart. It feels unlikely for now. What is happening right now is this second scenario. The system is contracting. Its power and influence are shrinking. And as it pulls back, you see regional powers, think Turkey, Iran, and Brazil, stepping up to fill that void, creating their own rules and their own alliances.
And in this really fragile moment, big global crises are becoming more than just crises. They're tests. The war in Ukraine, for example, is seen as a threat to the entire structure of the system. It's about borders and sovereignty. But the conflict in Gaza, that's viewed as a threat to the system's very moral foundation.
And that's a huge deal, because when people start to believe that the system doesn't value all lives equally, that's not something you can just fix. It shatters trust in a way that's, well, almost impossible to repair. For so many people, the feeling is that once that faith is broken, you can't just pass another resolution and pretend it's okay.
So that leaves us with a really big, maybe the defining question. If the global system we have right now is fundamentally designed to keep things as they are, then can real change, things like justice and liberation, ever actually happen inside that system? Or is the only way forward to completely change the balance of power itself? It's a question that's going to shape the world for a long time to come.